Hi, Eliza. My name is Andrew. I'm from Sydney. I'm down in Sydney, Australia. Thank you so much for allowing me to send you this video. I have over 20 years of SEO experience. I've worked across fashion, retail, online e-commerce brands for the majority of that time. And it's a great honor and privilege to be able to share this audit with you and some quick findings. And I hope we can set up a a Google Meet video in the future after reviewing this Loom where we can discuss these issues and a whole lot more that I won't get time today to get into. All right, let's get right into it. So I'm on your Adrift.us site. I'm having a look at the source code and the href lang has X default, which is the Australian, and EN. Well, X default is like a fallback option. So really, an X default is like when I would work on a company that was multinational, and they might have like brandname.com, and then it will just show like an index of countries. So the Australian version would be recall.com.au. The New Zealand would be recall.co.nz. And so the X default would be the .com version, which would then link out to the specific country-specific locations. Traditionally, it's more of a fallback option as opposed to everything else goes back to Australia, right? So right now in the link rel alternate, you've got EN as the .com.au. I would actually make this EN-AU. Very similar to what you did for the US for the .us. I would have EN-AU. Plus, if you can get Adrift, it's probably difficult, but Adrift.com would be obviously better, but you probably tried and it's either too expensive or whatever. I get it. But if you somehow get that domain, it's obviously something I would go for over .us. Alrighty. If I click on the under 50, right now, this should correspond with the .com.au version, okay? And what I like to do, although, you don't, this is your American site. And even according to Google, href lang and international SEO is one of the most difficult parts of SEO. And so, how this is done is very important, but I still like to have content that is specific to America in this particular page. And obviously your Australian version of the site. So I'll just change this to com.au. It would have its own Australian content underneath under 50. So is this women's clothing and accessories under 50? Is this women's clothing and jewelry under $50? What I would do under 50 on its own is very vague. What does this mean, right? Maybe you could have something like women's and you can see how you can change like women's clothing, make this H1 a little bit more descriptive. And then perhaps under that H1, we could have a paragraph of content. AI is going to love this because it helps them understand a little bit more about this page. What Google and AI really love is content that is specific. They love specificity. The more vague a page is, the harder it is to build that topical relevance and topical authority. So keywords like, women's clothing under $50 becomes harder to rank when the pages themselves contain a mixture of products. If it's women's clothing under $50, then let's just show clothing. If you can get more specific, women's dresses under $50, women's skirts, women's shirts, etc., women's jewelry, whatever it is, the more specific pages can be, then far easier it is to rank. What we did notice, there's no breadcrumbs, so maybe above. I'm just obviously doing this as a visual aid. It's not pretty much exactly how I would design it, but you might want to have something like, you've got like home, and then you've got women's clothing, and then under $50, right? And these will all be, so this will link, the home will link back to the home page, the women's clothing will link to the women's clothing page, and then the under 50 will not be linked. It gives an aid and a guide and make sure the page is obviously, the structure is understood from a user perspective and from a search engine perspective. Breadcrumbs are really essential as a way to help the search engines and robots understand your pages a lot better. Under $50, you're making it even harder for them. And that 1300 number also appears on Adrift.us. And so is it for the US site or is it for the AU site? It's a bit confusing. You might want to look into that as well if you can. Alrighty. Again, even some of these links, you've got like shop by category, dresses, tops, skirts. If we can make them a little bit more, women's dresses, women's tops, a little bit more specific, the better. So you got all dresses. The problem with that URL, all dresses, is not very SEO friendly. Because even the H1, even your headings, women's dresses. So why would this H1 not have women's dresses? Again, breadcrumbs, content. And the good thing about this page, if you change it to women's dresses, it actually is women's dresses, which is absolutely perfect. Okay. Product URLs, product titles are pretty good. Okay. So we can definitely fix up that. You've also got the titles and descriptions. So casual and everyday dresses for women. And then you kind of got Adrift clothing. So if I have a look at this site, I'm going over here. Casual and everyday dresses for women. Google's actually, like, you've got a few more words to use. You could be like shop online. You want to optimize these titles and descriptions for clicks. There's more content in this little meta description than actually what's in the actual page, which is crazy, right? So you've got more metadata than physical content data. So that's something that you would want to definitely fix up. Casual and everyday dresses for women. How often is that getting searched? Okay, is that the best title? What's the click-through rate like? What's the impressions like? How's it ranking? How's it performing? And what's the data in Google Search Console suggesting as some of the best or most popular keywords that are ranking relatively high, but you could be optimizing this better? You've got ladies' dresses and everyday dresses for women. I guess the idea here is to try to rank women and ladies. Again, is it women's dresses? Is it women dresses? Like, I get what this SEO is attempting to do, but it's difficult to really grasp what the casual and everyday dresses for women. If I'm looking at that from a search result page, it's not really inspiring me to buy a dress for perhaps my wife or whatever, right? So it's like, are they, is this product exciting? If someone walked in and said, describe in 60 characters your dresses, you're not going to just be like casual and everyday dresses for women. You're going to try to use more descriptive, click-friendly, inspiring information, that to encourage them. Heck, at least have shop now in the title. At least make it a little bit better that way. So titles and descriptions all could be improved. So externally, having links pointing to a page is a great way to build your domain authority. If these links are broken, you're basically going to ruin your page authority and your domain authority. So you've got links from stylingu.com.au. For some reason, you've got a domain called Serafina that 301 redirects to Adrift, but the links are broken. Okay, so if you go to Caprio Swimwear, I don't know how to even say this domain, Caprioscar Swimwear, and you click on camis, it goes, oops, page not found, but fashion awaits. Now, these links, this cami link is linking to your basic camis. Why hasn't this been redirected? This for me instantly tells me that there will be hundreds and hundreds of old previously broken pages that no longer exist that haven't even been bothered to be redirected. So and these pages could have had external links pointing to them, like in the case of this particular one that we're looking at. And that authority now is wasted because it goes to a broken 404 page, a broken page that no longer exists. And so you really want to make sure that your pages are either redirected or even better, potentially restored if you can ever bring it back. Okay. Same thing for Mum News Daily. And then you click on gingham dress. This, to be honest with you, looks like a bit of link spam. But if you click on gingham dress, you get the page not found. Okay? You got a great link, again, from using the Serafina, right? From BuzzFeed, very high authoritative website. You click on Serafina and you get a page not found. So not sure what's happening there. With that, if you have a look, if you right click, copy link address, go to redirectly, you put the URL in here. Oh, do we need that? Hopefully we don't need that. So it says it redirects to Emerald City Cape Dress, and then it goes to the adrift.com.au, and then because this doesn't exist, you get a 404. Now, what happened? This looks like this URL. The reason that it breaks is because this domain that's been redirected has been using a pattern that didn't take into consideration that you're on a Shopify website and that URLs aren't coded this way. But that aside, that's getting very technical. But that aside, if you have a look at this particular URL, if we go to site : which shows all of the pages. These are all the site : you don't need a HTTPS, you can just put Adrift in, because then this will even show you subdomains if you unfortunately have any subdomains featured in there. And you can then have a look for, do you have anything with Emerald City? No, you don't. Anything to do with a Cape dress? Not really. But could you use, I don't know. But either way, let's say this page, it would be better to redirect it to than just letting it break, okay? So if you can restore that exact product that used to exist, that would be very beneficial. And we can have a look at what that exactly was if we ever have a discussion about this further. All right, I just want to keep moving. Heaps of broken pages. You got broken internal links, broken external links. Yeah, we chatted about that. We chatted about the hreflang. The other area is, if you ever look down at your blog, and what we'll do, if you give us access to the Shopify website, we can then crawl your website and find all of your broken internal links. You obviously have a lot of broken external links, and this will help us find broken links internally that are lowering your page authority and lowering your external authority. AI loves content like what type of dress is the best to wear in wintertime under $100 that is pink and colorful, right? If you've got a piece of content that's ranking in Google already for that page's ranking, that particular type of query and page would then help AI look for that particular page and then reference or recite you, or that prompt would return adrift.com.au. The biggest part of SEO right now is the fact that it's entity based. It's how often is Adrift going to be talked about? How often is it featured? How often are people directly searching for it? These are all signals for AI and for Google to suggest that this is a brand that we need to show up more often. And that's why we've got to look at synergization with social media. When you create a piece of content, see how this is not actually linked. Read more is not descriptive. It's too vague. Remember, Google doesn't like vague. I would be linking the what to wear in Australia in June, right? This needs to be linked. You click on read more. There's no author. There's no date in which the article was written in this particular page. All very important. Who's the author? Where's the date? Where's the time to read? Search engines love, a quick summary, the too long to read, which is like, half the size of this particular paragraph in words, and just basically says, this is what the article is about in a very quick, brief summary. 3 or 4 things you can add is obviously, breadcrumbs. And for some reason, the titles don't work. So let's have a look at your source code. You don't even have titles. There's no titles. There's no titles or meta descriptions for blog posts. That's really, really bizarre, Elisa. Very bizarre. So much we can do. I mean, I haven't even get onto it. I don't want to keep you on this longer. It was supposed to only be 3 minutes, but there's so many things that we have found that I wanted to make sure that you understood that where we would fix and when we would direct the campaign. So I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for allowing me to share this with you. And I look forward to having the opportunity to discuss these issues and plenty more at your earliest convenience. Thank you so much.